You're listening to From a Certain Point of Skew, the only Star Wars podcast to correctly pronounce Ahsoka. I am Jason, the Angry Ginger Jedi Guy. I am inside my very own Wookiee Poo Studios. It's mine, not yours. But I'm not alone. On the Skype lines, we've got the Darth Mathias, the great, the powerful, the voice master himself, Darth Mathias.
Do not look at the man behind the curtain. Sorry. How are you? That's the best I could do. I am excited because we are under 2 weeks away from the big Ahsoka premiere. Countdown is at 13 days as we record this. I wanted to let everybody know that we will not have a show next week. We're going to let this preview run all the way till Ahsoka starts.
Ahsoka it in.
And well,
Ahsoka it in.
Promises have been made. You're writing checks your butt can't cash or whatever you want to say.
Oh, no, we're doing 2 episodes the following week.
Okay, just making sure. So we will be doing a 2-part episode, or I guess 2 different episodes that week.
I didn't say the second one was going to be the same length. Okay. I just said we're doing 2 episodes. No, I think we can just split it up. We'll make it happen.
We could do that. We could either split up our little news bits into 2 or something like that. We'll figure it out. I'll put a question of the week out, so we'll get some of those in there. Yeah, maybe we'll split it right down the middle. So it'll be like, any mall bags, any question of the week answers we get, we'll just right down the middle.
Halves
so
and halves.
Half for 1 and half for 2.
Yep.
I like it. If you'd like to find our show from a certain point of view, .com on Twitter and threads at FACPA pod, and you can email the show facpapod@gmail.com.
All right, lovebirds, on the show today, we've got a couple things in the news. We've got Apple buying Disney. We've talked about that before, and looks like the Skeleton Crew might be delayed. And then big bulk of the show, we've got the Ahsoka Series Preview with Ro from the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast, and then we'll discuss our giveaway info for the Ahsoka season. So stick around throughout the interview and get the information, or maybe that's before.
Well, who knows? It's a time warp.
I'm looking
whenever we do these.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had this kind of on our list of rumors we might cover at some point. And I think it even comes up in our chat with Ro, which you'll hear in a minute. But there is more scuttlebutt, about the possibility of Apple buying Disney in the next few years. So I didn't realize the whole depth of the relationship between Steve Jobs and Bob Iger. And in one of those articles I was reading, it was saying how they were apparently tight. And in the fact that Iger in his book even said, like, if he would not have passed away from cancer, I think we might have merged our companies at some point.
Right. I got to read that book yet.
I haven't read that. But how old is that book? 5 years ago?
Yeah, it's just a couple of years. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it came out when he left Disney officially. Well, not when was it Chapwick or whatever his name
Chapek.
Yeah, when he finally took over. Shortly after, I think maybe within a few months, that book came out. And then what was he gone? 2 years. 2.5 years, and he's back. Yeah. It
was pretty quick.
Overthrew him. Secret meeting.
Yeah, heads rolled. Yeah, so, I mean, there's been a lot of talk recently about Disney. Bob Iger's made comments about how they might start paring down some of their stuff, maybe getting rid of ABC, things like that. Probably not ESPN if they're, because everybody's thinking, okay, if they're skinnying down, is that we're getting ready for a purchase or merger, if you want to call it that, although...
Well, ESPN would be worth keeping because Apple has nothing to do with sports and betting and stuff, so that would be fine.
Well, Apple is getting into sports. I mean, they've got MLS now. They got the MLS package. I think they are doing some baseball, and they even tried. They recently last week tried to do the media rights deal for the Pac-12, and that fell apart. Now the Pac-12's gone. So they're dipping their toes in the sports world. So maybe they want to keep bringing ESPN in if they do purchase.
It's weird, though, because you look at the deal between HBO and Discovery, and there's a lot there. And then you're hearing about how Disney will need to get rid of a few things. And I'm like, I know it all has to do with monopoly. And, I think just how much they'll cover in just the digital realm. I'm curious to see if Apple were to buy them, if Hulu would also come along with it.
Right, because I've seen different reports about what they're going to do with Hulu. It seems like they want to keep it because they also want to offload some of their old content to it. Yeah. And so, I don't know, because then if you do that, you're right. The more they have, the more assets they have that start to present a monopoly situation, the harder it is for that deal to go through. So I think they are trying to get a little skinny, even though Iger everybody's like, oh, no, he's a builder, he's not a seller and all this stuff. But his contract is strategically set to end in 2026, which sounds like about the timing they might do something like this. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the meantime, by the way, just as a side note, Disney's like, hey, by the way, our subscription rate's going up for Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And I think that's happening in October, so just after Ahsoka's over.
Would it go up $3 or $4 a month? And they're also announced they're going to work on password crackdown like Netflix did.
Yes, that's the other one. Yep.
I didn't realize Hulu was as expensive as it is too. That's going up from, was it going $17.99 to $21.99?
I can't remember, but it's somewhere in that realm. I know there was a point where, and maybe you can still do it, where you could get ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus all together as one lump sum. Mm-hmm. I don't really watch a ton of stuff on Hulu, so really I'd be more after the Disney Plus the ESPN Plus stuff.
Yeah.
But it's ratcheting up. They did say like the ones with ads aren't going up. So if you don't mind the ads, But if you want the ad free, which most people do, then you're going to have to pay more.
Hell's to the yes.
It'll be interesting. It would be interesting to see it in the end if this happens, and now you're getting Apple TV content also with all the Disney Plus and all those other things. Are they still kept as kind of separate like Hulu and Disney are, even though Disney owns Hulu, or is it all just lumped into one big massive entity that you can? Certainly a bundle would be available. You think?
Right, I think so, but I think at some point it would all become one thing, and then like what takes over? Does Mickey Mouse, does the ears go on the Mac laptop, or does the Apple go on the castle? Like,
I think they probably keep that branding separate, but you could put the ears on the Apple.
Yeah, that's what I think.
So just combine them. I like that idea.
I think that might have been mentioned in the interview.
They're going to start charging us, by the way. They're going to be like, hey, so every time you guys mention Disney or Bob Iger, you owe us 25 cents.
Yeah. And then we will end the podcast. Or, you know what? We're fine with cease and desist letters.
We don't have that kind of budget. Even 25 cents a mention.
I got one that said something about not saying the words Mon Mothma and making sexual noises, but I've not paying attention to that.
Keep Mon Mothma's name out your mouth.
Yeah. I will not.
No, absolutely not. So yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a while before any of this stuff transpires, but it's. I mean, that is two massive companies coming together if that happens.
Yes.
And I didn't realize. You forget how big Apple is. It's like 10 times the revenue of Disney.
Isn't that crazy? It almost seems impossible.
$2 billion, or like $2 trillion.
Yeah, the reach that Disney has worldwide and the recognition and just all of the properties, and because people like to buy cool looking laptops and a neat phone, richest. Well, you'd say it's the richest company until you start looking into like the defense contracts and those companies, but that's a whole other realm.
They make a lot of money there. And I guess I said profits, I meant revenue. I think it's just worth. It's overall worth that there were $2 trillion. But yeah, I mean they created a culture of cool, so everybody wanted to have that shit. I mean,
right.
You know what I mean? So that well done, well played, Steve. So one other item, and that is that this just came up today. There was a. We know we're getting Ahsoka on August 23rd, and that runs into early October, and this made us think, and I think it was even announced, Skeleton Crew coming later this year at some point. So everybody's thinking, okay, well, so like maybe November, late November, early December, like after Loki Season 2, perhaps, if they don't want to run the things at the same time. But hold your horses, because there was an earnings call at Disney, which I'm sure was fun to sit in on. And there was a presentation shared, and Skeleton Crew was not on the list of content coming up, which was a bit of a surprise that it was. And it did say at the top, like, this is not an exhaustive list, blah, blah, blah. But still, it seemed a little suspect.
That seems like a title you would put on there in the earnings call,
I would think so. I would think
but
you put that over.
But I think this is just a push back. This might be like a January, February thing. And we're not going to wait too long. But, with the writer's strike and everything, I think this is just a smart move to make sure content is stretched out a little. So they're not stretched thin later.
That for sure. And also the fact that a good point was raised in an article I was reading that if they put out Skeleton Crew, I mean, look at Ahsoka right now. All you're getting is little trailers and teasers. None of them can talk about it. They can't promote it. So maybe they want to wait and let Jude Law be the face of the promotion, and he can't do that until the writer strike's over and the actor strike's over. So
and that's another thing. Bob Iger, after like talking mad shit about the writers a week or so ago. Now he's like, oh no, I'm going to be a big component in helping making this work out. Yeah, I bet you are. Fucking sign over just 6 months of your salary or your bonus to the writers.
Yeah, it'll be resolved.
See what you're willing to do
quickly. Yeah, you're about to get bought by Apple. You're going to make a ton of money.
You know what? I hope we get bought by Apple.
Us, our podcast?
I would sell out in an instant.
Oh, of course. We would do all the ads they want. I mean, we could do the ad reads if they want to just have us insert it, whatever. We're fine with it.
I'd get MeUndies with whatever logo they wanted.
Not me Robies?
Me Robies. The audience isn't aware of that yet. Good pull.
No, they haven't. That's a foreshadowing. They would not particularly enjoy. We would get censored heavily. They'd be like, "No, guys, you cannot say this." Every time. Nope. In minute 2, you said this. In minute 3, you said this. In minute 4, you said this.
Well, that would be their first move upon taking. It'd be like Barstool. they'd fucking buy us, and then you'd be the opposite, though. You're gone.
Right. Exactly. Oh, so that was it for news. So yeah, next we're gonna do just a little bit. We're gonna do an Ahsoka preview with Ro from the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast. I had a really great chat with him. Make sure you go check out his show. He's also part of the Red 5 Network, so go check them out. All their shows, they have a ton of them. But yeah, have a listen to our full breakdown of the Ahsoka. Oh yes, sir.
Well, I agree. Go listen to it, and wait the 2 weeks, come back to us. But I wanted to say, last episode, we were talking about the From a Certain Point of View book, and I made up we should do a certain point askew book from a certain point askew book, and I started writing a story.
Oh boy!
And I've written down a couple ideas for other things, so I'm in for it. So I'm waiting for our listeners to be like, I want to write something too. So
we need to
promote
put
stuff together. I'm thinking, we're gonna promote it all through Ahsoka, and I think during the next kind of break, the hiatus thing, maybe we can start sharing some stories or something.
I like it. So yeah, everybody, we will tweet out some teases of this. Maybe if you have like a little excerpt you want to throw me, we can put that out there as a little tweet and stuff to get everybody interested. But yeah, if you would like to, please write a story, send it to us, and we would love to include it as part of our massive volume of From a Certain Point Askew stories. Yeah. God, we are going to get sued.
Now, should we just kind of leave it open for now, or should we say like they're doing Star Wars, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back? Maybe we should do
a different trilogy or a cross
trilogy, right?
Oh, okay. So more like the gaps. We're filling in the gaps.
No. I was just thinking like you either do stories from the original trilogy, those characters, or stories from the prequels, but I say let's the first volume just be whatever you want to write.
I think it's wide open.
Yeah.
I think leaving it open for any topic to be discovered would be the way to go.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, think about that. Anyway, in the meantime, have a listen now to our preview with Ro from the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast. With us today is Ro from the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast. For our listeners, before we get started too deep into it, I wanted to kind of have you give a little bit of a description about your show and tell everybody kind of where they can find it and all that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. So, we started out as a strictly Star Wars podcast back in 2019 on the tail end of Star Wars Celebration here in Chicago. We had a great time going out there, grabbed the microphone and spoke with fans and people that were attending the celebration. Put together our first show and then, did a lot of Star Wars discussions from then. But we realized that our geek credentials cross into the neutral zone for the most part. So we like talking about other geek properties other than just Star Wars. So we kind of, did a little rebrand internally. I wanted to stay with the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast because we had already, generated a nice group of following. So it's almost like, it's almost as crazy as changing the name Twitter to just X. So we didn't want to do that shit. So, we kept the name, but just kind of switched our content a little bit. We just deep dives on anything that all the nerds are talking about, in a very truthful way. yell at fans or belittle other people's opinions. Everybody's valid, and we just talk, just like we used to do in recess or at lunchtime. It's just nerds getting together and talking about the stuff they love.
I gotta tell you are a man after my ungay heart. Like listening to you talk about your shows and going, well, first of all, like George Lucas, his urn is going to be in there somewhere when it happens. Good Lord.
Yeah, you got a lot of stuff behind you.
Yeah. This is like the tip of the iceberg, as they say.
I feel what they used to say back in the day. We're perping. We're like, we're fake here. Like I gotta work on the background here.
I love your Grogu.
Oh yeah, he's peeking.
It happens every time I've done a show with somebody else. I'm always looking behind them and going, "Oh my God, I have an unmade bed. Like, I need to work on it."
Well, I've been collecting since forever. I mean, I was 7 years old when Star Wars came out, and just kind of changed my life. So I've been. What did Cassian say? I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue, because I was going to ask you, whenever we have somebody new on the show, I always kind of want to get into how you came to Star Wars, what your origin story is there.
Sure.
And then like because for some people it may have been exposed to it early and it didn't take, and then they did later, or some people like right away. So it came out when you were 7, the original.
Yeah, it's absolutely. As soon as I saw that Star Destroyer go overhead, my jaw was on the floor. I was in the theater eating a hot dog, and you see the credits, you see the crawl, and that Star Destroyer just went on forever. I dropped that hot dog along with my jaw, and I was intrigued from that first frame. Yeah, there you go. That's what she said. It just kept on getting better. I mean, Darth Vader popping in that door as he invaded the Rebel blockade runner there. It was amazing. And, one of the things that really intrigued me is that, everybody talks about George Lucas's used universe, the used galaxy. Everything seems like it has been around for a long time. Nothing was really shiny. Mm-hmm. Things had dents and scratches and things like that. So that attention to detail for me, even as a kid, gave me an additional connection. It really impressed me. And my wife makes fun of me because I always feel like Star Wars is a documentary, not like really a movie. It actually happened. It says so right there on the screen a long time ago,
Yeah.
Right.
And, again, even as a kid, it inspired me to learn as much as I could about behind the scenes stuff, camera work, editing, sound effects, sound design, all the giants that were doing it, Ben Burt, Dykstra, all the camera people. It was an amazing thing for me to experience as a kid. And obviously, as a kid, you get exposed to all the special effects and the spaceships and the laser swords. But for me, I think the one thing that really, I guess, set me up for career decisions in my future was, it was amazing to me that somebody made that out of nothing. Mm-hmm. That galaxy was created out of nothing, out of the imagination of George Lucas and company, and all these people put it together, from the concepts of Ralph McQuarrie to all the work that the camera and special effects people did at ILM, and that story of how George kind of developed this special effects company. It really made an impression on me as a kid. I wanted to absorb as much as I could about ILM and what they did and how they did it. That it inspired me to be a kind of a creative person, learning some of that stuff. And I even started my own video production company back in 1994 because of it, having learned about the story of George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola and Zoetrope Films and all the stuff. I remember hearing a story of George saying that he wanted to go and buy an editing machine. So Francis Ford Coppola flew out to France because there was one that, old studio was getting rid of. Cost them an arm and a leg. And I can totally relate because my video production company was the first company in the Midwest to go into non-linear editing through the Avid Media Composer. And it has its roots in ILM. Nonlinear was developed by folks at ILM, a system called the Edit Droid, and I kind of feel a connection to all that. So it's fascinating. I haven't looked back since.
Wow, it's completely integrated into your life then.
Absolutely. I always say if you cut me, I bleed Star Wars.
Well, you mentioned too the attention to detail on all the Star Wars properties, and that's something I've talked about before. Like even when you go to like Galaxy's Edge, every little nuance and detail, it makes it feel more lived in, and it really puts you in, immerses you into it that much more. And that's what I think grabbed us about the movies. And you kind of made Jay's nipples hard when you start talking about production work and all that kind of stuff, because he loves all that stuff. He loves all that talk.
I love the behind the scenes stuff, maybe more than the content sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I mean, it's, even non-Star Wars stuff, all the stuff that ILM works on, I there's a whole bunch of documentaries, even when I had the VHSs of Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all the stuff that was created for, specifically, the special effects for Temple of Doom. You've got the 35 millimeter camera that's put on the track, all the stuff that they made. And it's cool to kind of see the Filoniverse kind of going back to those original roots. Yeah. They had, the documentary on Mando when they were talking about a couple of guys. We just went to the garage and started to machine making some of these, rigs for their 35 millimeter camera to see if they can kind of, do some photography of Jango or Mandalorian's ship. So it's really cool to kind of see them kind of going back to more of a traditional take, although, I love the fact that ILM is, cutting edge, always has been with George and company. I love the idea of the volume and the stagecraft technology. I have one of my friends was on season 1 of Mandalorian. He was, Dominic Pace. He was Gekko the Bounty Hunter.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know we're going to talk a little bit about the volume versus Ahsoka, but I love all that stuff. All that behind the scenes stuff is great.
Oh, well, but before we go, and we're going to jump into the Ahsoka stuff in just a second, one last thing is just that your show, part of the Red 5 network, I just didn't know if you wanted to talk about that for a minute, because you got a lot of shows on that network, a lot of variety, and I've listened to some of them, mostly yours, but I've listened to some of them as well. You guys have quite a lot of diversity there.
Yeah, there's something for everybody. If you guys are interested, it's bio.link/red5, the number 5. And I think we've got about 37 shows in there, 35 shows, audio podcast, YouTube shows. A lot of shenanigans happen over here at the Red 5 Network.
And there's still not enough for rural farm boy.
Exactly. But, we started the network because we wanted to be able to talk to other fans, other like-minded individuals that are, doing shows or talking about it. We love collaborating with other shows, whether they're part of the Red 5 Network or not. We just love geeking out. Like I said, just talking about all the cool stuff that fans are talking about. And that's there's 10 of us that started the original 10 that started the Red 5 Network, but it really has grown. It's been fantastic, and we're just here to support content creators. Again, whether they're Red 5 or not, we love the fact that everybody talks about whatever it is that they love, and we love supporting and hearing what they have to say.
Yeah, that's something Jay and I have been trying to do a lot more of is talking to other podcasters, especially Star Wars podcasters, and having that collaboration and those conversations, because it's just fun to do, especially when, because a lot of times we do cover the in the moment series and shows and all that, and so during those gaps where there isn't anything, we stick to Star Wars. We don't dabble off in other stuff like you do. So it's like, well, there's some really good opportunities here to get on with some other podcaster and like dive deep into a subject or something like that. And that's one of the reasons we want to have you on.
Cool. Excellent.
Question. Do you guys, the 10, do you guys call yourself the Knights of 10?
We should. And I'll propose it in the Red 5 chat. Absolutely.
There's not a standing meeting every Monday with you guys.
The Knights of 10.
The Knights of 10. We have, and I just keep thinking about the boy band reference, Knights of Ren. So we are going to do a preview of the Ahsoka series, and I will say, and I'm curious about you guys, I had all the intentions in the world of going back and rewatching Rebels and doing all these different things to prepare. And then all of a sudden this preview came up and I was like, well, I didn't have time to do any of it, unfortunately. I mean, I did watch Rebels. I guess I've seen it 2 times through because we did it for our show as well. And so I have a pretty decent memory of what happened and all that, but I definitely did not do the deep, research and going back and watching it all again. Did you guys have a chance to look back on any of that before the series starts up?
No, there's too much content to catch up on.
Yeah.
There's too much stuff to watch, but
It's a lot.
I think I'm like you, Matt. I think I have it in my head, and I'm sure they're going to do a couple of flashbacks and reminders. So I think we're in good shape.
That's the interesting thing is like, what are they going to do for the viewers who haven't seen anything? How are they going to bring 4 seasons of Rebels, some of that knowledge into things without like having to be like, did you go watch our YouTube catch-up show? So I really think there has to be some flashback things. I was looking, I thought I took a picture. There was a list going around. It's gone around. I've seen it for about a month now. But they're like the essential episodes that you need to watch from each season.
Yeah, I've seen a couple people do it. There was a show called Mando Talk that did one. And then when I was looking through it, I was like, well, God, it's still like 20 episodes. I mean, it's almost a third of the series. It's like, well, I don't know. I don't think I have enough time to go through and check out all that stuff. So it is what it is. I think I know enough. And like, to your point, Filoni's always trying to make a point of like, somebody should be able to jump right into this. They shouldn't have to know all the deep history. It gives you, of course, extra context and it means more. Certain things mean more. You're going to pick up references that other people won't, but you also should just be able to jump into the story without having seen Rebels before.
What if like the opening is her doing the spin and the cement thing drops down? It's the world between worlds. And as she's like walking through there, that's your 5-minute catch up. Like it goes to, she's looking through the windows of the animated series and showing different shots.
That would be funny. Yeah. I want to get into the world between worlds too, because that's obviously a big one. So I want to kind of walk through like what we think the major plot points are going to be. And then maybe we can get into some of the other stuff that's rumored or that we don't know about. Because obviously we've seen these trailers and typically it's going to be the first 2 or 3 episodes they're showing us stuff from. So they're not going too deep. But first things first, of course, everybody seems to be looking for Thrawn. Obviously Sabine promised Ezra that she would, come after him essentially. And so that's really her focus. She's sitting there holed up in Ezra's old loft in the Empire Tower on Lothal. Watching those How to Be a Jedi hologram videos from Ezra, which I assume are recorded, not live broadcasts. And then Ahsoka's looking for him, but why? Like that's the thing is I think people think, oh, she wants to find Ezra, but it seems like she's almost more interested in getting to Thrawn in general.
Yes,
especially after the Jedi episode from Mando,
right?
Whereas Grand Admiral Thrawn, right.
Right, but I think at the time I thought, oh, is this a means to the end? She's just trying to find Ezra. It seems like she's got more motivations than that. It's really Sabine who's after Ezra. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Hera's in there as well. And she, she, of course, I think wants to find Ezra too, because it's kind of part of the family. But she also, I think, is looking at it more as because of his threat, like the threat that Thrawn poses to everybody, because she's obviously been fighting wars for 100 years.
Here's a question. If she is really looking for Thrawn for a reason outside of Ezra, what is her reason? Now, they hinted a little bit in Mando that he has some power, right? He's got probably his own army. But what does that do? And what is she aware of that she needs to get to Thrawn?
Right.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot there to I don't know. Maybe there's something deeper that we're going to get as a build up to that, or we come to find it out later. Because then you get into like the some of the new characters that we're going to see, Baylan and Shin, who are trying to find him as well and using that the magistrate gal to try to find him. But what's their motivation? Because you would think it's like, oh, they want to somehow collab with him on taking over the universe or the galaxy. But at the same time, I think in interviews that I saw, they were saying they kept talking about how like it's a little bit confusing as far as what their motivation is. It's actually not as it seems. So maybe they've got something else going on. They also got those orange sabers. I'm wondering what that's all about.
Yeah, everybody's talking about the orange sabers. I want to ask you guys a question regarding, where we are in the timeline versus, because I hear a lot of talk on Twitter regarding the fact that you've got the extreme accounts that say none of this matters because it all leads to the sequel trilogy. I'm not the biggest fan of the sequel trilogy, but sometimes, the journey is almost as important as the destination, if you will. But do we feel that any of the motivations herein are tied to anything that has to do with the sequel trilogy at this point? Obviously, we had stuff that happened in Mandalorian that, you saw Snoke in a jar. So obviously we have a little bit of a connection there. But what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think it's going to do two things. I think that they're putting information forward for the sequels that we know, but we know that Filoni's got his own movie coming out, and we talked about this before, Matt. I think there's more going on with this timeline, right? There's things that they can allude to. They can fix the plot holes or the things that they can push into the sequels to make it make more sense, which is what Star Wars, what Rebels and Clone Wars have done. Filoni went back and did a lot of that with the prequels. I think there's some of that with the sequels now, but also I think that while he's doing that, I think he's building his own story that can run in tandem. Like, it's a big galaxy, right? Like, it's not all about the Skywalkers, so they can deal with that. But I think this faction of Thrawn, it might not even lead to like God, I'm podcasting, so I'm losing not the new world order, I want to say, but
the First Order.
That's what I said. Yes. So I think Thrawn is something separate.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, and also to your point, Ro, about people thinking, oh, well, does this really matter? Is this story worth being told? That was one of the things we heard with the Andor series. Like, people, oh, why do we need to see this series? We know the guy dies. It's like, because it's not just about the end. And then of course the old joke too there is, well, all of this technically happened a long time ago, so it's all, none of it matters then, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that argument always kind of bothered me, because if you have a valid story to tell, and we've on this podcast have talked at length about how valid we feel the Andor story is to tell, then yeah, tell the story. I don't think it takes anything away by knowing the fact that you're going to eventually get to some certain point.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. Because I don't read all the books. I've read some books with Thrawn in them, not all of them. I haven't read all like the Zahn books and everything like that. So I don't know, like, if there's a point he gets to in the books, and again, we don't know how much they're bringing that into canon.
Sure.
Where we know where his fate lies. So yeah, where is he come the sequel trilogy? I don't even know that information because I have not read those books. The only thing I've read with Thrawn in it is the Heir to the Empire stuff, and I'm on book 3. I haven't even actually finished it yet. And so that's kind of what I know of Thrawn, is that and Rebels. That's really all I know about him.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's I think I only read the Heir to the Empire was part of the original books. I do remember reading, I think, only the first of the new books. I have them all. It's just that I wish I had more time to read. And I'm the kind of reader that if I start reading something, my mind will start going somewhere else. And by the time I get to the bottom page, I'm like, what the hell did I just read? And I'd have to go back. So it's kind of frustrating. But yeah, I mean, if they are pulling from some of the Thrawn material, either in this new canon or expanded universe, and I'm obviously, Filoni has been doing that for a while now, kind of picking and choosing what he wants to bring into his stories. And Jay, you're right. I mean, they're getting ready to kind of set the stage for the big Filoni movie, and I think from that perspective, I think the story does matter, because we're not going to know what the grand finale of that story is, and obviously a story can branch out into many different little areas. None of this really has. None of this really has to be related to the sequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. In the long run, it's just another story of the goings on of these characters at this time. And I think, like you were saying, I think the Filoni movie will definitely come to bear with everything that we're seeing now. I don't know. They announced 3 movies: High Republic stuff, Filoni, and post Rise of Skywalker with Rey and everybody. Jesus. Yeah, exactly. So my thoughts on that is, like, I think Disney is trying to gauge where the fan interest is, and then maybe focus on where the money is here. But yeah, I think it'll all branch out, and we'll get, people will get certain stories that they'll sink their teeth into more than others. And I think for a franchise that's been alive for many, many decades, I think that's probably the only way to go. I think if we only had 3 movies, then okay, it's 1, 2, 3, and you're done.
Right.
But there's so much out there. There's so much content. There's so many characters and stories to be told that, really the sky's the limit.
Well, then that's when people always jump into the whole like, well, where are these people during the sequel trilogies? Anybody who's left behind who we haven't seen them die, although sometimes even when you see them die.
Although we did see supposedly we did see the ghost in Rise of Skywalker.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
So we would think that she's still around.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you weren't there, then they can just say, well, they were in the unknown regions.
Right. Yeah.
It's the standard cop out. Well, so the other thing that's stressed a lot, or one of the things stressed a lot in these trailers, is the fractured Ahsoka Sabine relationship. So what's causing the rift? It seems like Ahsoka was training her in some capacity and then left. Sabine's maybe dealing with some abandonment issues. Ezra left her. Now Ahsoka leaves her. And so I'm curious how they're going to play all that out, how long her and Ahsoka were together and doing that training and when.
Yeah.
Because it leads into this and how their relationship is formed, kind of because they were kind of together and then all of a sudden they're apart. Or maybe it's something like more straightforward, like Sabine was sitting around with Ahsoka and she's like, I really, really miss Ezra. And Ahsoka's like, me too. I was his first.
You were the breadcrumbs.
Yeah. So I don't know. What is your take? I'm trying to figure out where, and they'll let us know, but like where in the timeline that fits as far as Ahsoka training Sabine. Because in the epilogue of Rebels, I don't think we know exactly how far after Return of the Jedi that epilogue is supposed to take place. It certainly looks like they're going to bring that into live action because there's a whole sequence there that is exactly like the epilogue where Ahsoka shows up and she's looking at the mural and all that stuff.
Yeah, I have a feeling that that's how they're going to start the series. Kind of not exactly a recap, but maybe the end sequence of the recap is going to be that particular scene because you're right. She's wearing the same thing. She's got the staff. They're by the painting, the mural, and that's where they. I remember thinking when I saw the animated version, I'm like, oh, this whatever incarnation of this show is going to be next is going to be kind of like a buddy cop movie where they go out and look for Ezra.
Right.
Yeah.
And how many years later I think that's what we're going to get.
Well, you got a couple of things. You got Ahsoka who wasn't willing to train Grogu, right? Mm-hmm. So why would she have been willing to train Sabine at some point? And you kind of got to let go of everything if you're going to be training as a Jedi, and she can't let go of Ezra. So there's probably just like a real hard, like, look, you got to let him go if you're going to train, and her refusal to do so. So she probably drops her ass back off on the tower on Lothal. Like, well, you find him and then we'll talk. Right.
Well, yeah. Cause that's exactly what she saw with her master. He couldn't, he was so attached to Padme that it, eventually led him to madness. So yeah, that's a good point. The way they show it, there's a lot of shots of Sabine with the long hair. So I think they go even deeper, and then they kind of catch you up to the epilogue because then you get the full-on Kanan like knife cut of the hair. So I think they're going to go even a little bit further back to show. My hunch is that it would start out with her going to the temple, Ahsoka, and maybe that's when she, escapes. And that's where Hera picks her up and is like, you need to go talk to Sabine. I think she goes to talk to Sabine, and Sabine basically says, fuck off. Like, you kind of left me, so whatever. Yeah. And then there's also a fighting scene, I think on that tower, there's a fighting scene with her and Shin, right? So I think Shin shows up, either follows Ahsoka or whatever, and that's when they have that first altercation. And then it's only afterward, I think, that Sabine is like, okay, I'm cutting my hair, we're turning over a new leaf, I'm going after Ezra, all that kind of stuff. Don't you think?
Well, we know she could use a darksaber. They're implying that she trained at some point. So are we being duped? Are we being tricked, right? Or was she trained for some time to be a Jedi, and for whatever reason it didn't cut it, right? Or is she just using Ezra's lightsaber because she has that on hand as a weapon?
Maybe it's like me when I had the ice storm. She just uses it to go to the bathroom so she can see in the
Right.
bathroom.
Yeah. That's how she lights the tower on Lothal at night.
Very private.
TMI.
No such thing on this show.
That's true. And then, where do we think Ezra is? Because obviously we see Thrawn back. I mean, very, very, very few shots. But everybody's after Thrawn. He's back in play. So where the hell is Ezra? Because it's been a long time. What's your theory?
Yeah, with space whales, I guess, somewhere.
Maybe he found his parents somewhere. He's just like hanging out on a beach somewhere. Life is good. And they finally find him and bring his ass back to war. It's like, what the hell?
I want to get into we can talk about it now. There is the evil Ezra theory. Jay, you were throwing this out there too. Like, did Thrawn influence him more than the other way around when they went off with the Purgles, and really he's turned evil? There's even people who are trying to make the argument that he's the Inquisitor that she battles later, which I don't think that's true. But
no.
He's
That's
definitely
Darth Jar Jar.
Because he's still young and able to be influenced.
Yeah.
And depending on how long they were gone, it could be one of those things where like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So he's got to be like, in order for us to survive, here we go. And then it just sort of works out that way. But I don't think that's Ezra. Someone was saying they're thinking maybe it's Barriss, right?
I definitely think it could be Barriss.
I think it's a possibility, but there's a lot of stuff on the internet saying like, look, this is whatever the person's name is, and you're going to be let down if you're looking for anything else but that. It's just an Inquisitor.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it's going to be an Inquisitor that shows up and then dies right away. They gave him a name. I think it's Barak.
That sounds
Merrick.
right.
Yeah, something like that.
But so that's kind of part of the flashback sequence, right? Like that's old school Inquisitors because they're not really around anymore, right? Is that what you're thinking?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I do like the Barriss theory because I think there is such an interesting storyline between her and Ahsoka from Clone Wars that it would be cool to use
Is that too much? Is that too much mental work or too much to explain to the audience in 8 episodes?
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
I think it's going to be simplified.
This is why it's dangerous to bring in everything but the kitchen sink when it comes to a series that has, it's been around for a long time. I mean, you have the relationship between Barriss and Ahsoka, which is great for people that saw, the animated shows. It's like, oh, wow, that's great. It's heart-wrenching, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it is too difficult to start to bring in more than just the basics to a general audience, maybe and specifically a general audience that have no clue who these people are. I posted a joke tweet with the picture of Sabine asking, who is she? Is this Rey's mom? And somebody thought that I wasn't joking and gave me the lecture of who she actually is. And I'm like, bro, I'm joking. I know who it is. But I even, it's
Filoni explaining you.
Right. Exactly. I even said, regarding Zeb, I said, did they shave Chewbacca? Who is this guy?
I love it.
Nice.
It's so funny because there's fans out there that that there's no jokes. Like if you ask a question,
I know
you're a fucking dummy, and they're going to let you know.
They're very sensitive about it. It is funny that happens because I think they just take everything, I guess, at face value and think somebody, you know what I mean? So they just immediately jump to that next step.
And instead of like, hey, there's a fan here who's asking a question.
Right.
Let me give a little school here so that they'll get their answer and they'll be like, oh, wow, that's cool. Let me go look. I'm going to fucking berate you, you piece of shit.
How do you not know this?
Yeah.
Which led to my following post. After that, the sarcasm and irony is lost on social media.
I saw that was like yesterday. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I appreciated that some people were like, what the hell are you talking about? I like that people responded that way as a joke. Yes, and I did like your theory that it's Jar Jar in the
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, somebody said it can't be Jar Jar. Okay. Jar Jar's got 3 fingers and this one's got I'm like, dude, stop. Just stop while you're ahead.
Ready to blow your mind? It's Mara Jade.
Oh, we're going to get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
No, but that's an excellent point, Ro, about if you're going to, the weight of having Barriss show up for those of us who have watched the Clone Wars and are familiar with her would be great. But if you don't know that, it would really be a missed thing. Like you wouldn't have any idea why that was so important or impactful.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that's the danger, of these shows and how they have split off. I mean, you're going to probably get a wider general audience on Disney Plus watching Ahsoka that have, like I said, that never watched an animated show, to begin with. So this is going to be their first look at these characters,
Right. And
their
this
situations.
looks like Star Wars. This has lightsabers and Jedis and shit happening all the time.
Right.
So I think that you get different eyes on this for sure. I can even see them introducing her by the end, because if this show does one thing, it's going to push people to go back and watch Rebels, like people who've never watched it before.
Mhm.
So then maybe going into season 2, a little less explanation, you kind of get an idea who she is, and either through a little bit of exposition, you can just move on.
Yeah, maybe just a teaser. She discovers her somewhere,
Yeah.
runs into her somewhere, and everybody's like, "Who the hell's Barriss?" And then they dig deeper. Yeah, that's a good point. So, Jay, are you thinking that Ezra is not evil then, or do you want to push that theory for fun?
I for fun. We haven't seen anything of him, right, except for hologram, and really, that would be the most interesting thing, is for them to find him, and he's not what they were expecting, right? And then that's one of the famous themes of Star Wars is now we need to get him to redeem himself. Yeah,
they could do that. It would be a turn. I mean, you don't have as much to lose with the people who haven't seen the show before, but those of us who have would be like, whoa,
right.
But he in Rebels. I mean, they flirted with it all the time. He's like able to open the Sith's holocron, and Kanan was kind of sensing shit was going on. Like, what's going on with you?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It was like, we don't have a big bad moving forward. So if they introduce him as that and we start seeing him develop into like a big bad, I mean, we've got a whole origin story already, and we're like, oh shit, it's different, and there's going to be people that are pissed off about it, but I would find that interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, did you see the theory somebody had about that Thrawn is actually going to be a hero? Did you see that one?
Well, I think Thrawn thinks he's the hero of his story.
Well,
sure. Yeah.
No, this theory was that, and it may be tied to some books, I can't remember, but that his whole thought is that the galaxy is under a greater threat from outside, that something's coming to attack essentially and take over the galaxy, and that's what he's preparing for. Like, he's going to unify the remnants of the Empire and the New Republic together to fight off this enemy. Because you were speaking earlier about the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That kind of theory. I think that's a pretty wild swing. I don't think that's going to happen. They want him to be a bad guy.
You better drop some info on the table, like first episode, to support this theory.
Yeah, it's going to take a while to develop. Flashbacks, we talked about a little bit. They said that this show is essentially picking up where her appearance in Book of Boba Fett leaves off, but obviously we talked about the epilogue and some stuff going back, but I'm wondering what other flashbacks we think are going to happen. Are we going to get some sort of Clone Wars Anakin flashback, Kenobi flashback, or are we just going to see them as Force ghosts?
We're going to see Order 66 yet again.
I think you're right.
Was there an official trailer that had a shot of Ghost Force Anakin? Did I see that correctly?
I saw something today, and I think it was fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw it, and there was another shot in there, and I was like, this doesn't, and I went back, and the channel just had a weird name, and I was like, okay, this is not an official trailer.
Right.
So that's tricky sometimes. I mean, there's some
although his name is in the credits on IMDb.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was rumored long ago, like when he came back, like he had done something, because if you're going to bring Hayden Christensen back, like I think they're going to use him throughout. And really, that's a big part of her story. If they do any flashbacks, like I personally, I'd really like to see Kanan. I'd like to see a live action Kanan, right? If they're going to do a flashback, that'd be fucking cool. But that's more for like us who are like enjoy Rebels, and we get the backstory of, where the little boy with green hair comes from, and what, how Ezra was trained. But I mean, Anakin, it worked well in Kenobi that little bit, but to see that again, just that relationship a little bit. And I think that's really where, if they go into the world beyond world, I think that's how they're going to tell the story. Either she goes into things or watches things, and that you kind of get they can develop things that way. And we had talked before, we thought that the orange carrying Jedi, was it Baylan?
Baylan.
And we were thinking that maybe they had come from like some past and came through into the future.
Well, allegedly, I mean, because Baylan was supposed to be there for Order 66. He knew Anakin Skywalker. Right. He literally says that in one of the trailers. Anakin spoke highly of you to Ahsoka. And you're right. He's a huge part of her story, and he affects so much of what she does. I would be surprised if they didn't do a flashback. If they give us a flashback with those two and Obi-Wan, people are going to cream their pants. They're going to just go nuts for it. So I don't know. I can't imagine they wouldn't do it. I think they're absolutely going to do some sort of flashback with that. And hopefully, to your point earlier, Ro, before we were recording, they do a little bit more work with the de-aging on Hayden.
Yes. Yeah. It's too funny. Yeah, absolutely. But it's I'm very excited for the show for many reasons. I think, we as fans, we've all enjoyed what Dave Filoni has brought to the table when it comes to the animation. I think he's a decent storyteller, and obviously working hand in hand with George Lucas on these animated shows has given him an opportunity to really flesh out a lot of the characters and situations, and then just bringing them here to live action is going to be pretty amazing. I think it's quite an accomplishment for him as a creative person, but I think it's I'm gonna dare to say it's gonna be a treat for fans to be able to witness something like this. Obviously, Book of Boba Fett was what it was. Kenobi was what it was. We haven't really had a really great stellar Star Wars on the small screen, unless you count Andor, which for me was top tier Star Wars. It was top tier drama.
God,
Yes.
But I always look forward to new Star Wars because it's Star Wars, obviously.
Right.
I want it to be good, and I think these characters are going to be fun to watch and fun to learn about what their situation is. And I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think when seeing Ahsoka come in to Mando season 2, when she showed up, it was like, holy fuck, they pulled it off. Like she looked good. It really worked, because that's the concern you always have is how is this going to translate? Because some of this stuff is really hard to do. Thrawn is a tough one to pull off just because of his look. Zeb, who I assume we're going to see at some point, they did a great job.
Was amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
He looked fantastic. So I have full faith that they can pull it off. It's really down to the story. And like you said, Kenobi, while I enjoyed it, I haven't gone back to watch it again. Ro was telling me before, Jay, about how he's looking at that. What's it called? The Patterson cut?
Yeah, I saw that today. I asked him, how do I get a link to watch it?
Yeah. So, because maybe it cuts out some of the stuff you don't need, cleans it up a little bit, because it wasn't a perfect show by any means. There were some really cool stuff in it, but in the end, I caught done and I was kind of like, well, I enjoyed that. I wouldn't necessarily say it was the greatest show. But with this show, I don't want to put the expectation that high, but it certainly looks, from the elements that they're including, like it's going to be pretty damn good. And so I have a lot of confidence in this one.
I think Kenobi suffered from like too many cooks, right? It was going to be a movie, maybe a trilogy. Then let's turn it into a series. Then we've got a director. They hire a different director for the TV show. Like that, it went from like it was going to be shot like Star Wars to the volume. And for whatever reason, it didn't work on the volume like Mando does. So I think there was a lot of things that went wrong with Kenobi, although I liked a lot of it. So I don't have a problem. But there's something about this, like there's parts of it, they shot in the volume for Ahsoka.
Sure.
But I don't know what it is, but man, it works. Like everything just looks cinematic. And that's what blew me away when I watched the trailer. I was like, this doesn't look like what we've seen so far. Like Andor was like, they built sets, they did everything.
Right, more traditional.
Yeah. This looks like it has that feeling, but just broad, man.
Well, like when we talked about Kenobi, the joke that Jay and I said at the time was, I don't know if it's because we're so attuned to the volume now and know how it's set up. Like the first time you saw Mando, you had no idea all those things were just a screen behind them. Like the way they did it was so fantastic. But with Kenobi, was it because we were so aware, or was it not done tremendously well? Because there were times where there were scenes where it looked like you're like, that guy's going to run into a wall. I know that's nothing. There's nothing there.
Or that's shot in a warehouse. You can totally tell.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that really bothers me is the inconsistency of the look between all the Star Wars shows. And I was doing some research because obviously at the end of Andor, I was incredibly pleased. I was happy with the show, the series. Mm-hmm. And I started looking into why the hell do these shows all look so different from a special effects point of view.
Okay.
And, I'm like, what's up, ILM? And then I realized that because I always said after Andor, it's going to be hard for me in particular to go back to regular Star Wars. And I was doing my research, and it seems like there are 4 or 5 special effects companies that were doing the special effects for Book of Boba Fett, for Kenobi, for it wasn't ILM. And you can tell. You can definitely tell. I mean, and hopefully, and I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that they went back and said, you know what? We hear what some of the fans are saying. We kind of can tell. Let's kind of take our time here and do it the right way, because obviously, you know, I always want Star Wars to be top tier. I always want it to be the best that it can be. And obviously, Andor for me showed fans that we can do Star Wars the right way. Not that using the volume is the wrong way, but I think using the volume has such a different workflow for directors and creatives that they really have to think outside the box, and sometimes backwards. You have to do the special effects first before you do the actual principal photography. And it is a complete paradigm shift from traditional, you know, green screen.
Yeah.
Again, you know, just looking forward to it. I think, you know, there's a couple of shots in the second season of, or was it? No, it was those 2 Mandalorian shows from the Book of Boba Fett that they kind of clumped into that show, where I feel that the volume was perfectly used because it was planned. There's a shot where he gets into an elevator, he does a little scene, he gets out, the scene is completely different. That's all volume stuff, and that was all planned perfectly.
Well, and that planet they're on with the circle, that looked really good.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that. You know, you obviously, you know, the advent of the technological jumps in Star Wars are great, but I think, you know, like Scotty from Star Trek says, sorry everybody, wrong franchise, but as Scotty says, you know, you got to use the right tool for the right you know, situation.
Yeah. Well, it was noticeable. Because you're right, the volume works really well for a lot of things, but it seemed like maybe it was maybe slightly a crutch, like using it when you didn't necessarily need to.
And there's so many limits. I mean, the first stagecraft was not as big as some of the subsequent ones, and then now I think they're building 3 more around the world, one in the UK, one in Canada, and one in California that are going to be bigger. And obviously, you know, there are certain times where you can tell it's like, why is this shot? Why can't they, you know, bring this shot out more? I mean, why is this not a wide shot?
The one that always got me was on The Mandalorian when they would be walking somewhere. Why are they walking so slow? Because they're going to literally hit a wall.
Right.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like my high school years when I used to do running shots, but we would just run in a circle and we just go like this. The camera's like right there, you know? It's like,
Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing that was noticeable with The Mandalorian too was that you would see all these scenes that were done in the volume. And then when they were outside and really in an actual outdoor setting, it was starkly different. Like it was so different because it was the natural light versus the light from the volume. You can only do so much. But that said, I think having a bigger scale volume would be better because then you could do something on a bigger, wider shot.
Also, like it takes a while sometimes with new technology for them to mix the older stuff with the newer to blend it better. But I was gonna say, one of the best things that I like about Star Wars is like, even when Abrams went back and started using, you know, real life stuff and not just green screen and everything, is he did a really good job at mixing all of the different elements that Star Wars has used over the years. And like, for me, The Force Awakens, like from that aspect was almost flawless.
Well, right, because we talked about this before. When you watch the beginning sequence of Force Awakens, you were immediately like, it's Star Wars again. Like it's the Star Wars I know. You know, it felt so familiar. You're right. So you had mentioned, well, actually, really quickly, because we talked a little bit about the World Between Worlds. Do you want to see the World Between Worlds used? They talked about that fact that like that place with that temple is meant to be, maybe be that, maybe it's not, but. Is it something that's used? Because I think it could be a dangerous thing to use to allow that kind of stuff to take place. This is where I get a little nervous about, things jumping around and changing timelines and doing all that kind of stuff. I know it was important in Rebels for the sake of saving Ahsoka from season 2 finale, essentially in season 4. But yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. Is it something that they should use, or is it kind of a tread lightly thing? And how do you think they'll use it? Because you mentioned maybe Balin comes through. Jay,
I think it's going to be a plot device. I don't know if they should necessarily use it, other than maybe she finds it or she's aware, because there's more than one entry point, right? And I think maybe that's one of the things. She's got to hide these things or do something with them, make sure no one else can use them. Maybe that's, she's protecting these things. I don't know. I think it makes sense for them to, two things. One, it makes sense for them to use it because it'll be an interesting way to show us some flashbacks or give us some stories of things, introduce characters or things that have happened, and then we can move on. Also, I forgot the second one. So as soon as I remember it, I'll give it to you.
Well, the one thing I really liked about World Between Worlds, that episode, was when they were walking around and you just heard the whispers of different things happening from different eras and different timelines. Yeah. That was a really cool effect. I just worry that if you abuse this, it could get out of hand.
I remember. Okay. The multiverse right now is huge. Like Marvel's doing everything. You don't, it's not Back to the Future. It's not go back in time anymore. It's like, let's go to different timelines and do all it. So I can see it being used because it's such a popular plot device right now. But also I think Filoni, more so because this is him without Favs, is they're smart enough to recognize that, I think. So it won't bother me if they use it. Like sparingly, right?
Well, that's the thing. I think you just have to be cautious with how you use it if you do, because I just don't want them to abuse that.
It's a big reason as to why she's around still.
True.
So I think that needs to be recognized in itself. But after that, I don't want every time she finds a new one, there's someone popping in, mustache villain, and she's got to fight him. But
right. Oh my God, it's Pondo Baba. What are you doing?
Still got his arm.
Yeah. I absolutely enjoyed the World Between Worlds episode. Yes. I thought it was an intriguing concept. And in my head, I think I retrograded Yoda's line from The Empire Strikes Back when he tells Luke, through the Force, things you will see, the past, the future, long, friends long gone. Mm-hmm. So I almost kind of made myself believe that he was aware of the World Between Worlds, even in The Empire Strikes Back. And obviously, a little, retrograde in itself, where we know that Yoda was kind of training Ezra through that.
Right.
But I don't want them to use it as a crutch, a lazy plot device to answer questions. I definitely do not want a Star Wars multiverse. Yeah. Early on, I think people were talking about how they were going to, completely kill the sequels timeline because, fans didn't like it. And then we're going to reestablish something else. And I think from a business perspective, that's kind of a wrong thing to do, because obviously
$1 billion.
Yeah, people still enjoy it, and I think if you cut that off, if you set the stage for eliminating the sequel trilogy, you're going to ostracize the people the fans that liked those films, and you're going to split the fans even more. You're going to give the power to the people that said the sequels suck. Which, full disclaimer, I would be one of them, but you're going to give those people a louder voice saying, ha, 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 I told you so.
Don't you like the cycle, though, of the us original trilogy folk, kind of being, whatever about the prequels when they came out and being like, this isn't the same Star Wars I know, blah, blah, blah. And then now the prequel kids, they grew up on prequels, are like, the sequel trilogy is kind of stupid. You know what I mean? It just goes around and around. It's whatever.
Let's revisit this in 50 years and see where we're at.
Right. You had thrown an item on there, Ro, about how much of the EU do we think will be pulled in for the story? And I kind of wanted to ask that a little bit, because obviously she makes the Heir to the Empire reference. That brings in a whole slew of options here as far as who they want to include and who could they include. Now, because when you're talking about that series, which, like I said, I'm only about maybe a third of the way through the third book, but you got Luke, you got Mara Jade, the white whale of Star Wars. You've got Talon Karrde as an interesting character, that smuggler. Obviously, Han and Leia are in it. You got a lot of people that are in that series. And if she's specifically calling out that line, it can't be by accident. So how much do they actually pull in from that? Are we going to get Jorah Sabaoth or whatever his name is too? That's another one.
Well, yeah, people were saying that this new character with the orange lightsaber was going to be the Jorah Sabaoth of this series. I think it would be interesting. It's cool. I mean, we don't know how much they're going to pull from either trilogy, either era. That's going to be fascinating. I think once we start, how many episodes is it? 8 or 6?
I think it's 8.
8.
Yeah.
And we're assuming we're going to get a season 2, but they said that's kind of contingent on it.
Right.
Being
on the fans.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
You can always rely on Star Wars fans.
they're gonna pull Sebastian Stan from the World Between Worlds, so we'll have our Luke Skywalker, who will be the cloned Luke Skywalker.
Oh man,
Luke.
Yeah, that would be weird. Yeah. Well, I don't know if we're ever gonna get. I mean, the reason I brought up Mara Jade too is just because she's always gets brought up. Like anybody who's read books always is like, you got to bring in Mara Jade. You got to bring in Mara Jade.
She's actually one of the you do quizzes or who's the top 10 favorite characters in Star Wars. She's always one of them.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for them to bring her in at some point.
She's a ginger like you.
Oh, right. The world needs more gingers.
I heard that George Lucas hated Mara Jade. I don't know how truthful that is, but I've heard that from several sources.
I've heard that too.
Well, wasn't that the joke where is it Seth Green or somebody? There's like a fake thing where they're at the office at Skywalker Ranch. Oh, they're in George Lucas's office and Seth Green's meeting, there. Yeah. And one of the guys who's with Seth Green brings up Mara Jade and George Lucas kicks him out. Like, get the hell out of here.
Yes. Yeah.
That's funny.
Actual footage.
Yeah, right.
Are we going to see The Mandalorian? Are there's going to be talk of Boba Fett? Like, are they going to link anything back to those series, or is this an attempt to move forward and stand on its own?
I don't see any connection. I think this is Filoni's time to shine. Mm-hmm. His story. I think he really loves Ahsoka as a character. I think he realizes that this is a do or die situation.
Yeah. Well, there's a few people that I'm wondering about showing up. Rex is rumored. There's and her connection to him makes sense. But are you wedging him in there, and does he need to be there?
Wouldn't he be dead? So
the last technical sighting of Rex, if you believe it, would have been the old bearded guy on Endor.
Return of the Jedi, yeah.
Yeah, that would
right.
Be that. So no.
And how many years are we from that now?
5.
Only 5.
Yeah,
5 or 7, right?
7. It might have got a couple of years forward. With Amanda started in 9, I think. So yeah, so that's possible, and I mean I think that would probably fan service, Jay, if he shows up. Yeah. That's what everybody says. Agent Kallus. I would love to see Agent Kallus in live action. Yeah, I don't know that we will, but he would be great.
Mutton chops.
Yeah, get him in there, man. Last we saw, he was with Zeb's crew, like his people, Lasat. So I wondered if he might show up somewhere. I'm just curious how many of these little smaller characters. I mean, not that he was a small character, but in the grand scheme of Star Wars, he is would show up, in this.
We might get some great surprises. Again, Filoni's behind this. He knows he has been able to sprinkle, certain little tidbits throughout the animated shows. I don't see that practice stopping.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we'll only time will tell.
Yeah. You had thrown another thing on here, Ro, about too much Ahsoka. You want to explain that, what you had heard?
Well, I've got a friend who feels like Ahsoka gets shoehorned into everything. And this might just be my friend being bitter about stuff, but obviously she was in the Mandalorian show and we see her with Grogu and Luke. I do kind of like those examples in particular where she's kind of hanging out with Luke and Grogu. I do feel like they just kind of threw her in there just because.
I think she's a good link.
Yeah, but does there have to be a link between Luke and...
No, and it could have been just here, let's show a cool moment with her talking to her master's son. I could see that.
The dialogue was great. I mean, it was a good link, the fact because she knew Grogu first. And I because the Ahsoka show was coming, to me it made sense for them to, hey, I think shoehorn is an aggressive term. I think
sure, yeah.
Let's remind the audience, where can we put her? I thought that was a great place. But for me, this is, Filoni, for lack of any better term now, is the George Lucas, right? That's
right.
One of his creations. He's done everything he can to push that character forward. And it's not like he's doing it against everyone's will.
Right.
It's not like, well, we don't like this character. And he's like, well, I've got the fucking pencil and the Lucasfilm checkbook, so fuck off.
Yeah. And we can't forget that she was a hated character when she was first introduced. So there's that. Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah. That first, the Clone Wars movie, and then the first probably 2 seasons, maybe by season 3, people started to kind of turn the corner with her because they just thought, oh, it's just this whiny teenager. You know, they just didn't like her. I don't think they liked the way she was drawn, any of it. They just hated it.
Yeah, but like, how old were the men that were whining about this?
Oh, that's a good point. Too old to be making a judgment.
I feel attacked, Jay.
I think that, like you said, Jay, I think in these certain shows where she's shown up just in little bit pieces, I think that's okay. I can understand thinking, oh God, does she have to show up everywhere? But it doesn't seem totally overt. They're not really shoving it down your throat. So in this case, she is such an important character and tied to so many people that it makes a lot of sense for her to have her own show and but if you then keep going, if like all of a sudden they're just going to be like, okay, the movie with Rey, Ahsoka's going to show up there and she's going to show up here. Sure, I could see where that would get out of hand. But this all aligns, I think, for me pretty well because of the fact that she's such a central figure to all these people. There's only a couple of other people I was going to mention. We're going to see Jason Syndulla. We're going to see Hera's son. It looked like that little steel shot people posted. It looks like there's a little figure there next to her in the cockpit.
Little mommy head kid riding shotgun.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to see Kanan. You mentioned Kanan earlier. Unless Freddie Prinze Jr. is just talking out of his ass.
They'll mention it. Yeah, I mean, definitely mention it because obviously he's a big character and means a lot to Hera.
Yeah, he'll get mentioned for sure.
Right.
Yeah. But Freddie Prinze has basically said, no way, I'm not doing that.
Right.
So,
which of course he's going to say, right?
It could be misdirection.
Yeah, right. And now is the son, is he going to be a Jedi? Like, are we going to see that coming forward with him? Is Force Ghost Freddie Prinze Jr. going to visit him? Like, that's
a good question. Would he be Force sensitive? He could be. I don't know. I don't know how much they're going to get into his character, or if it'll just be like there's Jason, and then move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Again, sometimes it's just too much to bring in some of this other extra stuff that us Uber fans know about.
Right.
But it would just, I think it would just distract.
Certainly in the first season, but like we're looking at long run also, right? So like, if anything, they're going to tease. Like, he'll be like fucking Broom Boy.
Right.
Zoom. And all of a sudden goes, oh, that kid knows it, And that's it. That's all we get for the first season. And then, there's scuttlebutt all over the internet for a year and a half.
Exactly. There you go.
How mixed are you going to feel, mixed emotions wise, Jay, when you see a scene where your gal Mon Mothma's standing there, and then also right next to her is Senator Jono, who's Kaz's dad?
I hope she fucking kills him.
I don't know if you listen to our shows on Resistance Row, but
I hope she's shown the fucking world between worlds, and she goes back in time and does like baby Hitler, like she kills Kaz's fucking mom before he's born.
Oh, so you want the whole family killed, not just him?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, well, I mean, you got to stop the lineage. Yeah,
stop the whole line.
Or go find Kaz, take him to the world of between worlds just before his fucking planet's blown up.
Put a banana peel on the ground.
See ya. You're gonna like this light show. Not a fan.
No, not a fan. I think that was kind of it, unless you guys had other bits. I was going to get into other theories. We had some people, I put a call out to see if anybody wanted to answer and throw out any of their fun theories. And we got a few people who responded to that. If you guys want me to go through those.
One more, I'm thinking, are they going to tie like anything from the Bad Batch? Not necessarily characters, but some of those plot lines about Tanis or the cloning stuff. Is there going to be any teases of that to push things forward? And like, we don't get anything Mando, but that's like a thing that seems to be progressing throughout that. And maybe Thrawn is involved in that, right? If he's the heir of the Empire, like.
True. And I mean, in Mando, they gave us that taste of like him meeting with that little council, Moff Gideon.
Right.
And included in that was supposed to be Paleon, who was Thrawn's right-hand man in the books.
Right. What were they called? The Knights of the Knights of Red 5?
Knights of 10. The Knights of 10. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess there could be some crossover there. I didn't think about the whole like Mount Tantus and cloning thing being a part of Ahsoka. It feels like a separate story, but you're right. It is part of the overarching story.
Sure. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Ezra is Snoke.
Ezra is Snoke. Where is Ezra? I mean, is he the one that's going to come back from the unknown regions and say to everybody, hey, there's a fleet over there. What's going on here?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. I mean, I think, if anything, we might get a tease regarding the whole Mount Tantus situation. I think we got some space whales
True.
in Mandalorian, which didn't go anywhere, but obviously Uber fans know what's coming.
Right.
But again, just regular, more casual fans are like, what is Grogu? What are these things?
Yeah.
But we might start to get to see some of that stuff. And again, knowing Dave Filoni, I'm sure he'll be able to kind of pepper some stuff in there to either follow up later in the season, or just as a setting the stage for a second season when this goes through.
Yeah. Well, one thing about the Bad Batch that we're going to get is we're going to get Kevin Kiner doing the music. And that I'm looking forward to, because he has always done a great job with the animation music. Yeah. So to bring that into the Ahsoka show makes a ton of sense.
And he did the music for the last season of the Clone Wars, right? Well, I think he maybe did all the Clone Wars, but he was responsible for that like awesome shit in the last 4 episodes.
I think he did Clone Wars, Rebels, and Bad Batch.
I have been looking forward to his music again for the longest time. I think it was Rebels. There was one episode in particular, I think when they went back to Zev's, they found survivors.
Yeah,
there was a couple of sequences in that episode with the music from Kevin Kiner that were just inspired work. It was amazing.
Yeah,
and, just looking forward to more of his music.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So really quickly on these theories, there's a few people wrote in. Brown Leader from Hyperspace Heroes said Ahsoka gets a puppy. There's always one of those.
I can see that.
Chris Meyer says Sabine. Here we go. Sabine, Ahsoka, Hera, Zeb, and Chopper reunite in an effort to hunt down and find Ezra, who they need to access the world between worlds once more. Once there, they time travel back in time. That's not really how it works, Chris, but that's okay. To prevent the prequels from ever being made. Oh
no.
Of course.
Side note, in the process, they accidentally free Thrawn and have to deal with him too. So there you go. There's Chris's theory.
We didn't talk about Chopper.
I know. We're going to get some. He's going to murder some people.
I really hope that they subtitle Chopper.
That would be hilarious. Yeah.
Yes.
I would assume it's still Filoni's voice doing it. He was the one who did it before. And then we have a Mike Laybourne theory. You ready for this one, Jay?
Mm-hmm.
The season opens. This is pretty funny. The season opens with Hera confessing to Ashoka that Ezra is actually Jason's father and that he allowed the Purgles to take him to avoid paying child support. Something Thrawn agreed with because there's no word in the cheese. Is it cheese? I always say it wrong. Cheese? Whatever, his type of people.
Oh, chiz.
Chiz.
Yeah, chiz.
No word in the Chiz language for child support, and family court doesn't exist in the Outer Rim. We'll learn that Mon Mothma, careful, has left Top Knot and is now cruising the Coruscant club scene, having discovered drum and bass. He's out there, out on the prowl. Ahsoka, or sorry, he does say Ashoka for you, Jay. On her journey, we'll have to fight the red blade wielding Fathers for Justice activists, pirates, and we'll probably ride a wolf at some point.
Oh, that's right.
Did you the Balin and what's the girl's name?
Shin Hati.
They're both named like after like wolves, right? Like
it's a Norse thing, I think. So I saw that it's that one of them chases the sun and one of them chases the moon, and they're wolves.
Yes.
Well, Dave Filoni's got a hard on for wolves.
He does. He
does. And it's funny because it's almost like
he's a wolf trapper.
When you there you go. When you said that, it almost reminded me of the sister and the brother in World Between Worlds.
Mortis,
the Mortis arc. Yeah. Which is that's a thing that I don't know how much you can make people aware of that, the casual fan or the casual watcher, because you really can't. That's a deep series or arc. And I mean, to literally go back and know, wait, so Ahsoka died, and they put her life force, who's supposed to be representing the light of the force, the light side of the force, into her body.
Yeah.
And then that's why the owl's around, Maori's around. Yeah. So she is representative of the light side of the force, which is why maybe she makes this, perfect Jedi or whatever, even though she claims she's no Jedi.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, sorry. Mike ended it with, the series will end when Chopper arrives wearing an Oakland Raiders jersey and kneecaps the antagonist. Thanks, Mike. As always. I think that was kind of it. The only other thing I was going to mention is just that we did hear that we're going to get an hour 36 minutes on these first 2 episodes, which is great. Now, granted, probably 15 minutes of that is credits, but
No, actually, it's an hour and 8 minutes of credits, and then the episodes will just be.
Don't you, Jay and I've talked about this before. When you watch, do you ever, like, if you're watching it on your, TV or your computer screen or whatever, do you ever watch the progress bar and you're like, oh no, we're almost near the end of the episode?
Right. Yeah, like, well, there's too much. There's too much at the end.
Yeah.
But then you the foreign credits take like the longer.
They do.
They do.
Or it's so long that you think there's a mid-credit scene here. Click, 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 click. Nope, nothing.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Nothing. We've been brainwashed by the MCU.
I know we have.
Well, out of all of the series, there's only been the one in Andor, right?
There was.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Hold on. As far as a mid-credit scene?
And
End credit. Yeah.
It shows the thing. The cogs they were building was part of the Death Star, right?
Right. But we also had it in.
There was an end credit sequence Mando for Boba Fett.
A book of Boba.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that was kind of it, huh?
Yeah.
One last thing to say, and then we'll let you go, Ro, is just that we are working on a giveaway that we usually do for every one of these series. And so I'm still trying to figure out what those giveaway items are going to be. So Jay will work that out on the side. And who knows, maybe in our intro outro that we have around this episode, we'll have figured it out by then. Not sure. But it is going to work the same as it has in the past, where just to remind folks, you get entries and then we just do a random generator at the end. If you answer our question of the week, you get an entry. If you send us a mailbag email, you get an entry. Voicemail, you get 2 because we have a lot of fun with the voicemails. You've sent us a voicemail before, Ro. Thank you. If you do a review, you get 3 because, we still want reviews. And if there's a way you can send me some sort of convincing proof that you shared this with a friend and got them to listen to our show, you get 3 entries for that.
3 entries.
We're pretty easy on that, so it's not going to take a lot of convincing.
You guys have to be active for 6 whole weeks because 2 episodes are launching, and then for the next 5 weeks afterwards, an episode. So it ain't gonna kill you. Do your thing. I'm gonna have to start yelling at people.
Don't start yelling at people now. Wait till give them time before you yell at them. But we're already counting. So Brown Leader, Mike Laybourne, Chris Meyer, you've already got entries for sending in some stuff for your Ahsoka theory. So you will get a chance at that. And Ro, good luck to you because you won a T-shirt.
I won a T-shirt and I got one of your, what is that? A magnet? I didn't peel the sticker, a big sticker. It looked like it's got like a magnet feel to it, but it's pretty thick.
Oh, well.
That's what she said.
Hey.
I hope you win the Ahsoka stuff.
Surely. Well, Ro, thank you again for coming on. It's been great talking to you. Really want to encourage people to go find your show. Again, that's the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast, part of the Red 5 Network. A lot of other great shows on there, so go check them out. Oh, and I forgot to ask, how do people reach out to you on Twitter or Threads or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. Twitter. We're still on Twitter, Scarif Podcast. Find us wherever you download your other, I'm not calling it that, wherever you download your other your other favorite podcasts. Just tell your smart speaker to play the latest Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast.
All right. Well, we'll have to have you back on. I think it would be fun to do. We've been trying to do kind of these big breakdown episodes where we find like a scene or a moment in a movie or a show, and it'd be great to have you on to do one of those. So we'll sort that out later. Cool. Well, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next time.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you, Ro. Great conversation. We'll have him back on again. Really wanted to, it'd be fun to do another, like I mentioned, do some sort of breakdown with him. That'd be a lot of fun. Something we mentioned there toward the end is the Ahsoka giveaway that we're doing. And so I kind of got into the way you can earn entries. So I'm not going to rehash them here since I just said it on a recording.
Nope, just rewind it if you don't remember.
That's right. But we decided we were trying to kick around the idea of what we want to do for the giveaways, and we have some ideas, but also there is a
now I have a very crude drawing in pencil. A little bit of crayon, a nude drawing that I drew.
New or nude?
Both.
Okay. Is it spelled that way? N-E-W-D. Nude drawing.
Ahsoka nude.
Nude.
Now I have to do it.
You have to. It might make the book too.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, it's the cover.
Oh my God! It'll have to be like the old school like porn.
It's gonna be on the front and the back. So when you open it up, it's a centerfold.
But you'll have to have a cover over the book so you can't see what the cover is. So it's either that or it's going to be in that back closet of the video store kind of thing.
Yeah.
You go to So it was announced that there's some sort of merch drop happening on Disney Plus or for Disney Plus subscribers when Ahsoka drops August 23rd through the end of the month, and then it's open to everybody else. So we're going to see kind of what they dropped and pick like a first, second, and third prize that we'll pull from either that merch or some of the stuff that we found otherwise. So we'll put it all together. The bottom line is you can start getting all your entries now. So all we're really asking, support the show, engage the show. You get entries for that. You get rewarded for that. We really appreciate it. And then in the end, you might win a sweet fucking prize.
And like we're known for giving like the best gifts away in the Star Wars galaxy of podcasts. Come on, we've given the Darksaber, lightsabers. We've given a Lego hilt.
A real hilt?
Nude photos of Cole. What else did we give away? Oh, wait, no one wanted those.
He won those himself.
Yeah. He won the right to keep them.
I will say, I mean, and I listen to some Star Wars podcasts, other ones, not a ton, but I do listen to some, and I feel like our giveaways are probably the best. Just, I don't want to toot our own horn, but I think we certainly spend the most money.
That's fucking true.
Anyway. All right, well, that is it for that. We do not have any mall bags this week. I'm not going to get into it. Jay's going to get mad, so I'm just not going to say anything. We will probably have some by next time because we're going to have a good little gap here. People are going to want to be talking shit. So,
all right, twerps, you got 2 weeks. When the Ahsoka show comes out, you can have an email ready for us, all right?
Or a voicemail.
Email, voicemail. Your thumbs aren't broken. You can send a tweet, a DM, an actual email. Look, we just want to hear from you, the listener. We want to share it on the show, right? Nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong. And you get entries. And we give bonus points for voicemails, and we like to break those voicemails down. RFB does a great job with those. Please send your voicemails in. And I
do love the voicemail.
I appreciate the fact that you use the word twerp. It's highly underused these days.
I was looking for something in the vocabulary that, isn't worked all the time. So there you go. Butt nuggets.
Ooh, that's not good. Twerp is better.
Okay. Is that it? I feel like we've run out of steam. It's been a long week for me, so.
The show is over.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, twerps. Until next time.
Laugh it up, buzzballs.
Oh, we have spoken. See you in 2 weeks.